Recording in progress.
All right, call the meeting to order, 6 p.m. First on the agenda is approval of minutes from last month, April 28th meeting. I have one amendment, ironically enough, on the approval of the previous month's minutes. If I'm recalling the motions correctly, it was to approve the minutes as amended as opposed to amend and wait for later approval. So.
Well, that's what we did, so I guess, yeah.
So I'll make a motion to amend these minutes, that the prior meeting's motion was to amend those minutes.
And then, once they're amended, you will sign them,
I believe we can just, like, I made
and then.
the amendments
With
and
the
we'll
amendment.
approve as amended.
Perfect.
I'll second it.
All right. I guess that's for approval of minutes with that one amendment. Any discussion, are there any other discrepancies, amendments, anybody else thoughts? All those in favor of amending these minutes with the amendment of the previous minutes, say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries 6-0, 3 absent. The things that I find amusing. All right, moving on. Public participation. Gina.
I'm here tonight on behalf of the Main Street group, which is a very small group, but we're dedicated to revitalizing the downtown. That's what the state and the national chapters of it do. And we were talking the other night about the project that we want to do this year. And we had talked about lighting around the buildings at different times, and that never has seemed to get off the ground. But then Mr. Rasmussen talked about possibly doing some lighting in McCorkle Park. And so I did some driving around and sitting around in the park in the dark, and it is kind of dark. And I think there is some lighting that we could do. Of course, we want to coordinate with you and talk to you about it, but we would like to be involved in maybe helping design and pay for it.
When, just so I understand correctly, like when you say lighting around buildings, lighting in the park, freestanding pole lights?
No, I was thinking about putting some lights around the Fireman's Memorial,
Like on the building
like
itself?
on the building itself, high enough so it can't be vandalized. And also on the Price Pavilion, so they can be lit up at night, just a little bit more. Possibly some uplighting around some of the buildings or some of the features. Just like I said, something that's fairly damage proof. Lighting around the big Cameron sign, things like that. Just to enhance what there is. I don't know how much we could do with string lighting or things like that, but anyway, I think we would probably be consulting with an electrician and finding a source for the lights, something that would be sturdy and hold up to the weather. Anyway, we'd like to do that. In partnership with you all. We want to make the downtown area like the town's living room. That's my unofficial guide for everything we're trying to do. Make everything more attractive, everything more comfortable. But along that line, right now, the cost to rent the park is somewhat prohibitive for some of our nonprofit organizations. And so, I think that the lighting idea is coming along with the idea that, because I've heard that you were thinking about possibly a tiered system of, especially the deposit and the rent, because the deposit should be the kicker, because that check gets deposited and you don't have access to that $500 for however many months ahead of your event. So I know it's been prohibitive for the Arts Council to have any more park events. It's been prohibitive for Passion Church to have any more events. And it seems unfair that some of our nonprofit organizations are practically banned from the park, but we've got homeless people in it. So that's just my 2 cents. We would appreciate reconsidering some of the charges on the park.
Okay.
Thank you. If you have any questions, I go on.
Thank
And you
you.
can keep us updated too, if you guys have any more talks about.
Oh, absolutely. That is the,
Discussion, I guess.
that is the project that we're going to adopt this year. So it'll be, we'll see how much we can do. We may only be able to do the fireman's memorial. We may only be able to do the cameras, it just depends. I don't know if the band would be able to kick in something on it or not for the Price Pavilion. Cause they're wanting some fans in the Price Pavilion, cause it does get hot out there. And, just other things, but, we had this picture of streetlights that went across the street. Well, that's of course impossible to do because of like service trucks that have to come through. So that would just be like for an event time, we would do that. And then we had discussions of liability. Now, liability seems to be just the big thing all the time. And then individual owners, and so we've kind of come to the conclusion that individual owners of buildings want to light up their buildings all the way around, that they can do that. And they can plug into their own electricity and things like that. So, but doing something for the park to make it a little more beautiful, more attractive, a little more comfortable, more sellable.
I don't see any reason why we would object to that.
Okay, well, we will be talking to you then, cause that's the project we want to adopt this year, so that's what we're doing.
Sounds good.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do keep in mind, we're a nonprofit. We're a park.
Any other public participation? Moving on, financial report. Steve, is that you?
Yeah, today it is. You guys have the packet in front of you, just the standard, check run and our balances.
Is there anything you need to call our attention to? I didn't look through this week's in detail. Is there anything you need to call our attention to?
No, nothing's glaring at this point.
I didn't expect there to be.
I was gonna ask, like, on our donations for scoreboards, we have 5 now, is that correct?
No, I think we just have 3.
3? Okay.
To my knowledge, we have 3. Farmer State Bank, BTC Bank, and Early Family Farm.
Okay. Keep it online.
I think there was some of that communication might have got lost in the transition of staff, and I'm not sure where we are on some of that. I know we have funds from the banks, and we have funding for Al's donation for the shelter house and the potential pickleball and things like
Okay,
that.
that's probably where the additional's at.
Yeah, that's.
That's okay. That's okay. I was concerned too because.
No, those funds are, but it was
Yeah.
different, that's a different project, so. it's
I
different.
know, before Drew left, he wanted to have a picture in the paper of this, and we said, no, let's wait a little longer. And so when he talked to Shelley about it, she couldn't find anything, and then you were really based on the pickleball, so.
I just, there are no plans that I see for pickleball, but, I don't know where that was as far as.
To my knowledge, on the pickleball, it has not yet been explicitly designed in, but those funds are still there and earmarked.
Well, I hope it's drawing interest somewhere.
Agreed.
Any questions on the park and pool, construction project? As far as, financing? We did I ordered bleachers, this week, and they came in, 30,000 under that,
Awesome.
and that's bleachers for all 5 fields, so.
Exciting.
Huh?
Keep that up.
I do also know, if you're looking at that, we bought we have the same as brand new pitching mounds stored from the Park Valley. We bought some and YMCA didn't really want to use them, so we just stored them in hopes of breaking them out at some point, so.
So we already have pitching mounds also.
Mhm.
Very
How
nice.
many do we have?
Three.
So.
We may need to buy a couple more, but for youth level, we have three that are basically in new condition, so.
I can hold, I mean, the only reason that I can think that we would need 5 right now is a tournament utilizing all 5 fields.
Right.
At this point, with the last 2 just being practice quality fields,
Right.
that's an expense to get down the road, in my opinion. Very nice. Keep those like sorts of updates coming.
All right.
Yes.
Will do.
Keep the
Yeah,
camera
they're
going.
right.
Is there anything left to be ordered?
Let's see. I'm kind of waiting, like that field groomer and some of those things,
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait till closer to time. I think, I'm pretty confident we can come in under that as well. But I don't know, maybe not now with the price of metal and plastic and everything going up, so. But I'm gonna wait and see what's maybe best closer to time. We've ordered concession stand, well, I haven't ordered the concession stand appliances yet either, just because we're still building the building. Now the pool obviously has theirs.
Any other questions, comments on finances? All right. Next on the agenda, superintendent report, park and pool.
Well, I guess I'll start with the pool. As you all are well aware, we're having to push back the opening till June 4th.
Amy, had you got that? Had you seen that yet?
Okay.
It's on his website already, right?
I was gonna say, it's already
Would have been nice to have
passed.
got that to you 2 days ago before the paper ran, but, yeah.
And I will have that on our Facebook page as well before the day's over. It's an unfortunate situation. I know Midwest Pool really needs more time to really be prepared, and I really think that's our key component to that is they hired staff, but they really didn't have a good place to do all the trainings preceding the opening. And it was more of I just hate to open a pool and there's confusion on how to get in with the passes and confusion on how to sell concessions, and then the guards are maybe unsure where to be, and obviously safety concerns with that as well. I'd rather wait 7 more days and have kind of a wow factor that, you know,
Do it right.
right, when you walk in, people will be wowed and like, they will have a struggle getting in and things like that, so I'd rather get everything buttoned up and the training's done and feel like we are really ready to go for the opening, but it's looking amazing. I signed off on the slide, whatever day, yesterday, Wednesday, and it's, if you have, I guess you guys did the tour, but now with water in there as well, it's impressive.
I walked through over the weekend.
Did you? Yeah.
It looks very nice.
Well, Steve, is there going to be a ribbon cutting?
Yes,
ceremony?
and our city manager's on vacation. I know he wants to include, city council with that, so maybe we can do that now, the Saturday before the actual opening, and do a grand opening ribbon cutting, maybe that morning if possible.
When you say the Saturday before, you mean Saturday the 4th?
No, I'm sorry, Saturday the 4th, before
Yeah.
we open it more. Yeah, so maybe like noon or 12:30 or whatever, and do a ribbon cutting. I don't know as far as availability for everybody on that, but that's a possibility that.
That would be my preference, to cut the ribbon and invite the public in right then.
Right. I think that would be our best bet, as far as getting everybody there and kind of make a big deal about it.
I know when we were at the tour, I heard city manager and I can't think of her name from Carruthers talking about.
Sheree?
Yes. Doing the big grand opening on the 4th of July.
No?
I personally would rather see it at the actual
Well,
pool.
that was my opinion too, but I did hear that out loud, so I wanted to.
And
throw that out.
part of that, I'm sure, was, had we opened the 2 days from now, as originally planned, there were still going to be ongoing projects for them to finish the last details. The pool was gonna be open and functional, but they were still going to be on site finishing those,
Finishing
so.
Whereas
I'm
now, before,
assuming,
everything's gonna be done.
I'm assuming that was just looking forward to the next big swim holiday, as let's have our ceremonial
Yeah.
opening then. I'm speculating,
Yeah.
but.
Are they planning on the parking lot and everything to be done by that time? By the
We
opening?
We'll have the parking lot cleaned up and accessible and usable now. As far as, we're looking to put an asphalt surface down, and no, that won't be, we're gonna try to piggyback on the street cuts. We're gonna have an asphalt company in town, and when they're in town, we're gonna try to do all of it at the same time, so. But that'll be midsummer, and we'll probably just have to close the parking lot for a day. I'm sure they'll only need a day to get in and do their part of it. We might need to close it for 2 days to prep it one day and surface it the next, but I think at this point, there's enough parking in Rec Park and around to get by for a day or two if we need to. But that's the plan for the park.
So I would say, Steve, we target, what time is the pool typically open?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock, so I would say we target 12 o'clock, Saturday the 4th for opening, and just make sure that works, that's the next one.
I got a ball game at 11. Everything else feels, so.
Do we need to make it 12:30?
I don't know. I mean, it's about an hour, so I mean, we get like 12:15.
I guess if the pool opens at 1, does 12:30 make more sense, or does 1 o'clock make more sense? I don't expect it to be long.
Opening day, there's gonna be folks showing up to kind of get in line, I think. I'd rather go earlier than later. I feel like
That's what I was thinking.
get
just
close to
have
1,
yeah,
there's gonna be a
get
real
online and-
congestion. Of course, that might be cool for a picture too, I don't know, I mean,
To see the crowd line
yeah,
up with us.
I don't know, what
My thinking is it would be good for the public to feel like they can attend and then enter the pool.
that's,
So,
yeah, that's a good point, so yeah, maybe we push closer to 12:55, 12:50, and right before, and do the big thing, and, you know, 12:45.
unless you're anticipating a lengthy ceremony of any sort, I'm not.
I would think there would be no.
Lots of music, like a concert.
I thought.
Yeah.
Get some artists and.
Is there gonna be a
band.
band?
Huh?
Is there gonna be a band?
Swimsuit contest.
Oh, no.
So maybe we
I
pencil
don't
in
wanna
1
see
o'clock.
Okay. Tentatively around 1. Obviously, I'll need to
Talk to
communicate with the city
We don't
manager and
need their
the
way.
city council to see if their availability.
Sure. I don't wanna get into management their way either,
Yeah.
trying to get their guards ready and everybody going.
There has been some discussion of lack of guards and lack of staff for Midwest Pool. That isn't the case. They have actually hired enough guards for 2 full teams, they call them. So there's at least 20 guards. They are still looking for,
That's
great.
awesome.
right. I think they're looking for another assistant manager and maybe another what they call lead guard, but for the most part, they're hired. They just still need to do some training, so,
That's awesome.
That's good to hear.
yeah. That's all I really had for the pool portion of that.
One other thing, we had talked about the potential of, like a soft opening, say a Wednesday evening for.
We could still do that if that's something the park board would like to do.
That's the question, and that might be worthwhile checking with Midwest Pool and see if they think that would be beneficial for their guards.
I'll reach back out to them and I'll just contact the park board via
Like the
email.
Wednesday
and-
before.
You mean like next Wednesday?
Like a week from yesterday.
That's the first.
So my thought would there would be, park board families, council families, city staff families, lifeguard families, basically people directly involved in the project and families, and basically give everybody a chance on the pool management side to work through kinks in a trial.
Like pretend like we're paying to get in
Yeah.
and those types of things.
Right, give them a chance to guard the water and, you know,
Just work out the kinks before it's the full public opening.
I'll discuss that with Chad, from Midwest Pool.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that would just hinge on whether they think it would be necessary or beneficial
Any questions on the pool update? Okay. The park update, really, there isn't much to speak of. The pole barn is complete. The Musco Lighting they put some pillars in, so they're starting their lighting on the soccer fields. Still seems like a really slow going process. Nothing to really report because it's not moving as fast as I guess we anticipated. I know the weather is obviously slowing them down as well, but
Concession stand is taking
it's taken a while.
a
Yeah.
while.
Right.
I was like, yeah.
So there is, like I said, there isn't a whole lot to report. Working on the concession stand, it's nearing, at least the exterior is nearing completion. Our Greg Harris, our city inspector, is out there on the daily. There isn't much for him to inspect because there isn't a whole lot going on. So we were supposed to have our meeting today, the OEC meeting, but I had to cancel because we were at the pool doing pool stuff, so couldn't quite meet with them today. But 2 weeks ago we were just pushing back with, it's like every time we push the extension back on when we're potentially going to open. So it's just a slow process, I guess.
So just thinking out loud here, so the primary focus of the new park is sports fields, and those are going to be not playable until next spring, regardless of substantial completion of the park itself.
Right.
So do you know offhand, and I'm assuming you don't know the date offhand, but could you check between Vireo and Erner at basically how late could we potentially slide substantial completion and still get the sod in place with sufficient time to have it established and ready to go next spring? In my mind, that's the important deadline is playable.
I think we will, even with the delays, I think that's going to happen. I actually am kind of advocating to push the sod install back to a more, right now it's slotted for July, well, in August. That's not a good time. We'll spend a fortune on irrigation, and then we still might not get a good outcome. We're spending a lot on sod and grass seed, so I would rather put that in the prime time and when it makes the most sense. So
But I guess I would ask that you, like I said, with Vireo and Erner, just identify what that date looks like when we actually need to have substantial completion finished to make sure that
Make sure
we
we're
get
at-
sports fields playable by next spring.
and everything else, I feel like next spring it'll be completely ready to go.
That's what I want to make sure happens.
Right. Everybody wants to be sure that happens.
Right.
Yes, I'll by the next meeting, I'll have better dates and things like that to hopefully. I mean, it's ever evolving, but try to have
I've been telling T-ball parents and other team coaches for 2 years now, we're gonna have all fields to play on.
right, well, we will.
Were you able to check colors on the, I drove out by there and it looks, is it kind of a dark green or?
Yeah, I guess that was all already pre-established by Park Board in the planning stages, no?
No. That's why I asked when I saw the
Well,
poles going
and
up.
I reached out to Larry and he's like, well, it was already predetermined and so
No.
I assumed that was part of the, maybe
I just
the
wanted to make sure that
subcommittee.
it was matching,
I-
like the concession stand, the shed, everything was.
My assumption would be Drew picked colors. I don't know that for sure.
Yeah,
I'm speculating, but.
that's my guess. I know I didn't have anything to do with the color
Right.
picking and I just assumed it was the subcommittees that, or the.
Cause we went through all that on the pool stuff, and
Yeah.
so it was like, yeah.
Yeah, we
Maybe-
had a vote on the.
We had lots of discussion.
We had lots of discussion on colors.
Right, well, and maybe that was just Drew just went with it to match maybe the other buildings in the park system.
Yeah. Well, I was just hoping it was gonna match the concession stand, the shed that they've already got.
That everything
metal
matches
on.
out
Yes,
there.
Right.
Yeah.
So that
And I
was-
think it will, just. I'm not sure, so.
Okay. can we check like Aereo or whoever, would they, I mean, surely it was part of the design process.
I believe the roofs will match, I'm pretty sure that's the case, so.
Double
I mean,
check.
you got the, yeah, I will, I'll double check on that.
All right.
Or I'll probably reach out via email if that's all right.
Yeah, that's perfect, yep.
I started looking into that, I just kinda, everybody acted like they were confused, and I just think it's kind of where this whole project is spinning right now.
And you kinda came in the middle of it all, I know, so.
Right, sir.
So when I saw the poles going up, it just got me concerned, like, are they gonna go ahead and put metal on that, or are we gonna figure that out, or what? So,
Details.
Right.
Any questions on the park update? Unfortunately, there isn't a whole lot to report us this morning, but
In the middle of a big project.
Yes.
maybe we can divert, Carruthers after they're done with the pool out to
Right.
Markdale.
All right, next on the agenda, unfinished business, no line items, do we have any unfinished business at this point? Next on the agenda, new business, playground safety policy statement. Steve, back to you.
This is, I don't know if you're aware, every 3 years, I go and I take a certified playground safety inspector course and an exam, and that certification is good for 3 years. And that's put out by National Parks and Rec Association, and I think this was the fifth time I took the course and exam, but I found this statement is kind of, I thought it would be a good asset for our program, our park system. It speaks to allocating funds out of our budget to assure that when we put it in our playgrounds and inspect our playgrounds, that we are doing it the right way. The right way is in front of you. I gave everybody a shrunk down copy of the CPSC guideline. That's no, that's actually the ASTM standard. Yes, that. And part of that course is you have to go through and you'll have that field guide, which that field guide has both books. There's the ASTM standard, which is really dry, boring read, and the other one that's a little more user friendly, and that's also the free copy, so that's why I think we'll print. But it just speaks to safety and all the different variations of like head and neck entrapment, and obviously not fun things to talk about, but our insurance
Necessary.
providers love the fact that we have a CPSI staff, and the way we do our inspections via our cloud-based inspection format. But going back to when we had to remove that playground, I knew for a while that there was a few issues that we needed to address, but the funding really wasn't there because it's such a pricey piece. So we had to decide, well, is it really unsafe? And at the time, there wasn't any glaring, huge safety issues, but it didn't match the standards in front of me. So our insurance provider wrote us up on that essentially, and we had the option at that point to either correct all the issues. The biggest part of that whole playground was the pillars, all our like 4x4 planks.
And we're talking about.
The one that Rec Park got, we had to remove it, yes. Well, that's a component structure, so every one of those is what they consider in that book a designated play surface. So if it's greater than 2x2 inch square, it's a play surface. So then you have to have adequate surfacing underneath that, and it changes. And that's one of those things, when they built it and installed it, it was fine, but it's modified over time. That's why, like Moose Station, if you notice the tops of those are all rounded now. That way they're not designated play surfaces. So, long story short, we had to remove it, or they were gonna fine us $35,000 at the city. Or we could correct it, but that manufacturer didn't make all those parts anymore. Basically,
correct wording there, I don't think it was a fine, it was an increase in premium of $35,000, as I recall.
No, well, that's not how it was relayed to me, is they were going to fine us $35,000. We were gonna have to cut them a check for $35,000 is how it was relayed to me. So we made the decision at that point, we couldn't get replacement parts because the piece was too old. It was close to 40 years old, so they didn't make replacements. And there was some, at that point, there was more safety issues that were coming up. You know, all that plastic breaks down over time, starts to wear and crack and some of those things. Well, anyway, long story short, we removed it and we didn't pay, but now my point is with this, I want to make that a priority. And I know we already do that to a degree, but I want to, moving forward, make that one of the top things we look at. Is we only install the IPEMA certified playground stuff. Moving forward, we make sure we have enough budgeted money every year to repair the ongoing maintenance needs. I know in the past we just threw that under line item system structures and grounds and hope that we have enough funds to take care of issues. Well, obviously that whole line item is $35,000. So that's not going to take care of all the needs of new repair and replacement of structures as they wear and right. So it's just a blanket statement saying that we will inspect, which we currently do. Everything in here we currently do other than the allocation of funds to maybe a separate line item that would speak to playground safety specifically. And we're getting ready to do the budget here. We're starting it right now actually, so maybe, start off with $4,000 to $5,000 of a line item just to have that ear tag to where when we need to replace shackles and different parts. What a lot of people don't understand in public playgrounds is if a chain breaks, I just can't go run to the hardware store and buy a chain. It doesn't work like that. I have to buy it from Miracle and it has to be signed off. Even as far as surfacing goes, if say we do put a new playground at Rec Park, well now we have to make it ADA compliant, so we would have to at least get rid of some of our pea gravel and put like engineered wood fiber. It's mulch, but it's signed off by an engineer that it's more unitary, so wheelchair bound folks can get where they need to go. So there's all these price points that people don't understand that it costs a lot of money to maintain and build new, and that I just feel like we need to put our hat on this and say this is what Cameron's going to do. We're going to make sure that we take care of our playgrounds to the best level we can, so we don't run into another issue where an insurance provider says, "Hey, do this, or we're going to fine you." And I think that is the direction we need to go, personally.
I like the concept on this thing as it's written. I've got a handful of rather nitpicky suggested revisions. I don't know if we need to go through those now or sit on them, work on that over the course of the next month and revisit this. I like the concept and the intention.
Yeah, I had a couple ideas on it.
We can, yeah, I don't expect a vote tonight. I just wanted to throw that out there. Throw that out there and get the ball rolling on so many things we do, some of them we could do a better job of,
So currently, like, what is?
currently we are actually in really good shape. That's the other thing. I think now if we just assign a certain amount of money going forward, because we don't have anything blaring. We went through and even the older pieces on the what we call Rec Park East. There was Rec Park West, Rec Park East, as far as when we do our inspections, we took out the parts that made it, they dinged us on basically. Because it wasn't completely composite, it was sectioned off and you could pull off parts and make it work. So we're good now. I mean, other than the fact that the stuff in Rec Park East is still pretty old, excluding the toddler playset that's in there currently, which is really not the best place for it, but at the time, we had a real push. This was prior to New Station, we had a real push for toddler age appropriate equipment. And so that was kind of our way of pleasing some of the people that wanted toddler age stuff. And we could put it in that because there was enough crossover of age appropriateness in that area. So we could also definitely pull that piece and move it anywhere else as well. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I was just curious, like, as far as inspections, have we been keeping up on those
Oh,
in
yeah.
the past? And I was just,
we have our software is called Playground Guardian.
and you've been doing these for quite a while. Okay,
15 years.
okay.
And we haven't used Playground Guardian for 15 years, but we probably have used it for the last 5. And the thing with it is, it saves all of our inspections to the cloud. It saves all of our inventory to the cloud. If there's a fire or anything like that, it has all of our new station plans and part lists, and even I've scanned up even the old pieces to that, to where after I'm gone and someone needs to order a part, they can open that up and go, okay, this is what it is, and this is the part number, and call our Miracle rep and get it ordered. So,
Right.
but it also, that way we don't have to.
I was just curious, because like when it said on a regular basis, I'm like, you do it quarterly, is
Oh,
it annually?
The way that works
How is
is
that done?
they call it high frequency, low frequency, because legal speak, they don't want to say weekly. Essentially, it's weekly. High frequency would be weekly, low frequency would be monthly, but more in depth. There's high frequency, and we do it really more like almost daily when we do the rounds, because you don't have to be a CPSI to do a high frequency inspection. They take the tablet, Lanny does most of them, and they'll walk through, and if there's debris in the surfacing, we pick that up. If there's pea gravel in the steps, and there's a whole checklist to go through. But that's more like daily to weekly, is everything kept and more or less safe. Checking hinges and things like that. The weekly or low frequency, that's more we get on equipment, we look at all the nuts and bolts and get underneath and look at structural stuff.
Okay.
And then there's an audit, but the audit only happens typically when you either install a new playground or make a major modification to a playground. So that's the only time you should ever. And that's checking like ADA compliance and all your minimum and maximum heights for your, what they call a HIC rating, which is your, they'll get out like a ball that hits a turf, or in our case it'd be turf, and it shows what the displacement of the energy and whatnot. So, but that's like a one-time deal, hopefully.
That helps. I was just curious.
Yeah, we do it at a minimum weekly on every one of our pieces, but probably more like 2 or 3 times a week.
So I think it makes sense to revise this over the course of the next month and bring this back on the next month's agenda.
Okay.
Do we need to have any formal vote or anything to do that?
We will need a formal vote when it's complete, and
I'm talking about tonight.
no,
Okay.
we'll just move it to next month, and feel free to read that ASTM standard, though. I gave you a couple copies out there. It's a good read.
All right, anything else on playground safety policy? All right, next on new business is date for pool grand opening. We've already talked about that, pencil it in for 1 p.m., June the 4th. That will be confirmed. And Steve, I'd ask that you send that to the newspaper
Will do.
as part of regular community communications once we do set that finalized.
Okay,
hopefully before it runs in Thursday's paper next week.
okay.
No fault of yours, that's honest. Any miscellaneous?
I have a question. I was approached with if we still have lights at the basketball courts at the soccer complex.
We do, and there was, breaker, it was a breaker issue, it's
Okay.
fixed. It's
Okay,
good.
so that is taken.
It's hard.
And that's till 10 o'clock, I think, or is
I
that
think we
somewhere in
dialed
that?
that, I believe it is 10 o'clock.
Roughly, okay.
Yeah, I just know we didn't go to 11 because the neighbors over there aren't big fans, so I think we cut it off at 10.
Okay, but that's been fixed, okay. Good.
I have one more that I totally forgot till she said that, and I took a picture of it at the soccer fields on the end of the concession stand. One of the cameras is broke, or it was, and it was just facing like straight down.
Okay.
So
Get that taken care
I
of.
meant to send you a picture of that, and I totally forgot until she said that, so.
We'll get that dealt with.
Anything else under miscellaneous?
Just appreciate your updating us like you used to on a regular basis.
I will get back to it. It's been a crazy time lately, but I'll get back to that every Friday. It seemed like we were doing it, and then we had our park board meeting, and we had other meetings like this, so but I will definitely get back to it.
And track meets.
Yeah, too many tracks.
Track meets and baseball games.
Baseball's over, track's got more days.
I was gonna say, tracks.
Then we'll look for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.